As we look at this, notice that some of the data is text, so it's a title. Some of the data is numbers, whole numbers. If we're talking about numbers sold, we wouldn't have half of a video sold. You would either have 147 or 148, but not 147.3. And then price. Now, price is a decimal value. Let's look at that one first. These are money values. This represents money. So in the ribbon, in the Home tab, there is a group called Number. Now, if I come here, right now you'll notice that it's set to General. By default, everything in your spreadsheet in the beginning is set to General, meaning you can just type whatever you want in there. It's all considered to be characters. We don't know if it's text or numbers. We don't know if it's money. We don't know if it's a decimal value that's going to equal a percentage. We don't know if it's a date or not. It's just whatever you type. So that's general. But you do want to get more specific with your data type. As we get into using some mathematical things, that's important. So here, instead of having these price per video data be general, let's hit this pull down. Now, if you hit the pull down, you'll notice that there are different data types in here that you can use for the data. General is what we started with. A number would be kind of like a whole number. It could be also a decimal. Then we get into these two. Now, these two are basically the money formats if we're talking about money. Look what happens when I set this to currency. And let me expand out the width of this cell a little bit. You can see that each one has now got a dollar sign on it. We can also adjust, if we wanted to, we could adjust decimal values. But it goes into a default mode where currency is 2 decimal places with a dollar sign to the left. That's how we normally do currency. If we were to have this be a longer dollar amount, we'll say 100,000 something dollars, there's also the ability to work with commas and have commas appear or not appear, depending on what you want. Let's look at another variant of this. If I select these 5 cells again and come here to accounting, notice what happens here. This will be more for the format that you might see in accounting spreadsheets, where we want to see the price, but we don't want the dollar sign to be hugging up against here. In some cases, I'll make a quick change here by double clicking inside here. This may actually be a large number, okay? And I'm going to hit my enter key to go down. Notice what's happened here in the accounting format. Because we have the dollar sign staying to the left, it frees us up from having dollar signs hug against the values. It also automatically entered commas there. So probably, not every time, but in most cases when we're working with spreadsheets where we have lots of values here, totals and individual values like this, we would normally use the accounting format. Okay, let me look at one other format here. Let's say we're going to put the date in 10/22/23. Okay? Excel recognizes that immediately as a date because of the format. It has changed my 23 to a 2023. But because this is a date format, and notice what it did, it automatically chose date format, I can come in here and make some adjustments if I want. I can come to the bottom and choose more number formats. In this case, we're talking about date. But inside the number group, in the date category, look here. I've got actually a number of different ways I can show the date. Let's say I wanted it to look like my original date where I didn't have the full year variable. I just wanted to see 23. I can choose that format. If I come here again and go to more number formats, let's say I want Excel to, even though I've entered them in a quick way with numbers, I want Excel to go and figure out what the day of the week was and put it in a long format for the date. It can do that. So I choose this format and see what happens here. Not only did this get long for the width of the column, and Excel automatically set the width of the column to fit, but it has gone and found that it is Sunday, October 22nd, 23. This will work for all kinds of dates way back in the past. So as you are creating, say, a historical spreadsheet, it will calculate what the day of the week was for that. Okay, so now we have looked at common text formatting. We've looked at the number format. We've looked at the date format. Let's go ahead and mark those green. Okay, let's look at formatting of cells, border and fill. Now you have been watching me use fill already here. That is simply a matter of clicking the cell and then coming up here to the font group, where not only can I change the font and the sizing and some of the styling and the background, but I can also look at borders. Okay, so let's just choose a cell over here when we'll apply some initial formatting to the border. If I've got this cell selected, in fact, let's actually select a group of cells. Okay, if I come over here to the font group, you'll see that there's the border command. I can choose the pull down to the side of it, and I can choose what types of borders I want. Let's say we've got some data in these 5 rows, and I really only want the border to be around the outside of the 5 rows. So I can select an outside border. In addition, I could come in here and I could choose the border style. So let's choose a thicker line. And because I had red and I triggered the style, I already had a border color here set for red. Now we've got a red border here. Okay, so what happens is you first can select the type you want. Let's say we were going to just change that to a top and bottom border for that red. If I select that, then that has now altered what I had set for my top and bottom. If I want to remove borders, because my left and right are still there, if I wanted to remove borders, one way to do that is to come in and set things for no border and reapply what I was trying to achieve. In this case, I will select the same 5. Here's a top and bottom border with that same red with a thin line weight. Okay, I'm going to undo that. So in the case here, what we've got, we may want to contain what we have over here. Remember that when you have this data here on the screen, these cell divisions, the light gray that shows the width and the height of the cells and the shapes of the cells, none of that prints. Those do not go to the final output of this document. Those are used just so you can work inside the worksheet. However, I may want to set up some formatting so that I see things in a format where there are borders. So let's do that. Let me add one more column value here that we're going to need. I'm going to put in a total, and we'll get to how we calculate that. Now I know the entire width of my column. You do want to have, if you're starting to format borders, you want to know where your overall data area starts and stops. Okay, so I'm going to select the whole range of this data, and I'm going to go back up to my borders, and I am going to choose all borders. And watch what that does. Now I'm in red, so I'm going to leave this selected, and I can come back in here and I can choose a border color. And I'm going to change my border style to thin. Okay, so now we have borders around all the cells in our area with a thin black line for formatting. The other thing that we know we can do of course we do it in Word all the time, but we can do it here as well. We can adjust font styles and sizes. So let's do that. Let's take this, the contents of this area, and actually bump it up. We can use our increase command here. And as we do that, watch what happens. Notice that the cells themselves are auto-sizing to the contents, and the overall area has gotten large. The height of these rows has gotten larger. We haven't really made too much change to the width, but as we decrease, you'll notice that things also follow along. So the Excel will auto-size rows and columns based on what's necessary once you start to make changes. So for this, let's go ahead and just run this to 14. That should give us enough size. The other thing we can do is select entire rows or columns to work with. So let's say I knew that these were going to be titles, and I wanted to make these bold. Well, I could certainly do that, and I have just made everything bold for the entire row. So if we were to add other things in this row, those will come out bold as well. And then here, we can also work with entire columns for formatting. Notice what's happened here in our cell A1. We have lost the first part of this text because it went off screen because our column is too narrow. How do we fix that? Well, we know we can double click the divider and Excel will auto size the column. Let's take these and bring those up to bold as well. Okay? So formatting can happen in a cell. If I wanted to just change that to red text, I can certainly do that by clicking the cell and making changes. But I can also make changes to overall rows and entire sections if I were to select a large section. Okay, so that's formatting. We've done borders and fill. Let's look at alignment. Here we see titles for the video category. Those are right aligned. That might come in handy as we work and we see that we may want to have the title be closer rather than, say, off to the left, a little farther away. Might be easier to see if they're right aligned, which is how we have this from the beginning. We may want to have all of these columns, we'll say this column, have a different alignment. These may be center aligned. That's a little easier to see what's going on. Perhaps price, we would normally leave right aligned. Any prices and things like that, because what happens is you want the final numbers to all align vertically, and the numbers as they get larger go left. So it's normal to have right align. We're going to have this be a number as well, a currency value. So let's make sure these are right aligned, which they are. Choose this for right align on that cell as well. Okay. Let's look at word wrap for a second. We'll use our overview text here. When I come and move this column to be more narrow, as we talked about earlier, this will just overflow text. Okay, but let's say I wanted all of this text through here to stay within the column width and not overflow. That's done using word wrap. So if I were to choose this entire column, and now I come up here to my alignment, same group, and I choose wrap text, watch what happens. This now will wrap the text and contain it. It makes the row larger, but it keeps the text within the width of the column that I choose. Let me also set the alignment on this to be top aligned and top left. Okay, so there's top left. So as you can see, I've got some space in this cell below. As I change the width of this column, the word wrap still works, but it will just auto adjust to what's needed. If I try to make this very small, my row gets taller and still contains the text. Okay, so word wrap is an important thing to use when you have text that may go outside the border and we don't want it to flow into the next column. Word wrap text will contain what we have in there. Merge and center. This is another cell formatting trick. Merge and center is often done on your title row. So this title row, I have all of the text, if I select it, there it is again in my formula bar, all of the text contained in cell A1. But I don't want that. I want to be able to stretch this text across the entire row. We looked at that in Word as a merge, and a similar function exists here in Excel. If I select the 4 columns that I want, and you are wanting to select the number of columns, you can then choose merge and center, and watch what happens. It immediately merges these 4 cells that were the first one holding the data and then the other 3 adjacent to it. It merged them and took the contents of that one cell and centered it. So this is the perfect way to create something of a heading row. I'm not going to necessarily need this row here, row 2. I'm going to delete this row. Now I'm not clearing the contents, they're already empty, but I'm deleting the entire row. And watch what happens here. If I want to just create a little bit of sizing here for my title, I can then make the row taller. I can also have this middle aligned. So now we've got a working row that works well for a title. Okay, last, what I think I want to do here is make sure, yes, okay, we've got all our data in here that we want. Let's come here and we will check off merge and center. Okay, Styles. Excel's got some preset styles for things. For instance, the title. Let's select this one cell, which is now one cell. It still shows as the A1 cell because that's what where the contents came from. But if I come here to styles, I can choose a cell style. Notice what we have here. Some colors, some data and model, and then we have things like titles and headings. I'm going to choose for this cell A1 and these merged cells title. And notice it has given me a preset value for a title. We can do other things to this. I could actually bump it up and make it more bold. Okay. We could change the color if we wanted to and have it be a dark green. All right, so these styles that are here in the styles group under cell styles, there's some presets, but you can then take them and make changes to them. I'm going to choose these 4 cells, and I'm going to come here to the, to the cell styles, and I'm going to set this as heading 2. And so it's changed my colors a bit and my sizing of the font. I can get a little bit of space between my title. Okay. So there is using styles, and there are a number of other styles, and you, of course, by choosing the format that you like, you can sort of create the style yourself. Okay, now down here on our list, we have done cell styles, so let's check that off. Okay, print preview. If I do want to see how this will look when I print it, considering I just made some changes to the visual formatting, let's come over here to File, and if I choose the print dialog, it gives you a view of how the document will look when it prints. Okay, it's going to work on it for me. There. So now, disregarding what we see down here, this section up here is what we have for our presentation once we print it. It has included the borders that we have down here in the data section. It has included the colors, but it is also not showing borders here where I have omitted them. So we may want to have those. That's a style choice. But using the print preview is a great way to see how your final document will look if you are going to print it. Okay, let's come back to our document. There's print preview.